Okay, hello, another video. My name is Autumn. It's my humanities class. I'm gonna upload all these tonight. Kind of got behind a little bit. So, over the past 2 weeks, my understanding of My Name is Red deepened significantly through the combination of not only reading, video analysis, projects, and the time quizzes. One of the most, striking realizations for me was how different readers can walk away with entirely different takeaways from the same material. Watching the classmates' responses to earlier projects remind me that interpretations, they aren't just shaped by the text, but also by our own experiences, biases, and interests even. So, help me become more reflective and open-minded, and recognizing how much we can learn from each other just by comparing each other's insights. In one of our readings, we were introduced to Iran's narration. His voice stood out immediately. It wasn't because of what he said, but because of how he said it. It became real clear that he might not be entirely reliable, and I think that idea became even more real after watching the craptastic video that accompanied the chapter. It walked through some of the subtle cues that hint that we're on selective memory and biased point of view. So that's kind of tied to the concept of the unreliable narrator, which we further explored in a video essay on literary tropes. So that video broke down the different types of unreliable narrators, such as the naive, the self-serving, deluded. It kind of helped me understand not only how Iran, but other narrators, interpret how other narrators we encountered in the novel. So the new understanding, thus, and it led directly into Project 7, where we had to consider whether Iran could be considered innocent. So at first I wanted to just focus on his actions. Did he commit a crime, or not? Kind of more of like a black and white thing at first. But the more you dig into it, and you see that innocent isn't always about actions. It's about silence or denial and stuff, or what you choose not to see. So my conclusion was that Iran's innocence is questionable. Not because he deliberately caused harm, but because he may have turned away from truth that made him uncomfortable. So it pushed me to kind of think more critically about how characters and people would protect themselves from guilt by telling certain versions of the story. So the narrative voice shifted again when we heard from Black, who offered his version of the events. So Black's chapter highlighted how fragmented truth can be when people tell it. So reading his perspective added, a complexity to earlier scenes, and made me think of trustworthiness. I had to think of the trustworthiness of everybody involved. The craptastic video following that chapter, it unpacked that. It unpacked Black's narrative of how art and love blur lines between truth and imagination. It kind of became clear that no character in this novel can be understood like solely isolated. They all reshape each other's stories and influence the reader's perception, So, and all of that kind of led perfectly to our study of memory and how it works. So the crash course psychology video that we watched explained how memory was not a perfect recording, but like a constantly edited story that changes depending on how we feel, what we focus on, and even how we recall it. So that gave me a really new lens with the view of the entire novel. So each narrator is not just telling a story, they're remembering it, they're reshaping it, and sometimes even rewriting it to suit their own needs that they had. So Project 8 really allowed me to reflect on that, both in the context of the novel and even in my own life. You know, I became much more aware of how I remember, um, and it's actually just a narrative I've built over time, just like the characters. So, reading Esther's chapter brought a very grounded perspective. So, unlike Iran in Black, she does not seem interested in justifying herself or reshaping her past. Her voice was super calm. Um, she's very practical. Hold on, Hope. Hold on. And unfiltered. So it kind of made her feel more trustworthy, at least her character. That analysis video, though, it helped reinforce the importance of her role in balancing the emotional complexity of the story. So through her, I saw the value of perspective rooted in reality, not ambition or regret. So overall, the past 2 weeks, they've helped me grow as a reader and a thinker. I've learned how to question narration, analyze memory, and think deeply about how stories are shaped in fiction and in real life. Thank you.